meeting by clicking on this. This meeting is being recorded and folks can click on the Zoom link at tinyurl.com/ordinance-2023. Folks can include public comments during the meeting via email at info@brentwoodmd.gov. And we will get to that first. But before we do any of that, if I may please get, I guess, our town clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Lauren Roque.
Go away. Go.
May I ask for folks who are not in council to please mute their phones and computers. Thank you. Town clerk, continue.
Here.
Councilmember Kiana Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Marcus Monroe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stefan Legging.
Here.
And then Mayor Rocio Tremino Lopez coming soon, hopefully. And after that, I guess we'll just go to Town Administrator, Mr. Gaston,
Here.
and then Town Clerk Larry Moran. Here.
We have, thank you, Town Clerk. We have a copy of the meeting before us on our screens, and it was emailed out a few days ago. If I may get a motion to approve this agenda.
Just a second. Vice Mayor,
Yes, sir.
the town clerk needs to also acknowledge that the treasurer, police chief, and town attorney are all excused.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Gaston. And with that, may I please get a motion?
I move to approve the agenda of the special meeting of the Maritime Council for Saturday, August 5th, 2023.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And so we're going to start things off by getting to our general public comments. And I think in an interest of being respectful of folks' time, we will begin with folks who are present on the call. I would ask, however, if folks have entered in written comments, they can choose either to give comments verbally, or you can choose to have the clerk read your written comments. But there is a 2-minute limit for either one. So if you have written comments that you've submitted, those will be read aloud by the town clerk. If you prefer to have your comments be instead presented live right now, we can do that instead. And please know that all of your comments have been forwarded to council for review prior to this meeting. So nothing has been forgotten or set aside. Town clerk, would you like to take it from here when it comes to public comments?
Yeah.
We usually ask that those who are requesting to make public comment raise their hand via the Zoom app.
And if we make sure everybody's on mute unless they're speaking, so we don't get background noise. Thank you.
And town clerk, I'll ask you to call on residents who have their hand raised, please.
Okay. I was just waiting for Mr. Gaston to say which one's speaking. We'll start off with Liz Marshall.
I think Liz says her audio isn't working. We will include Liz's written comments in that portion when we get to it. We do have another person, I believe, whose hand is raised, if the town clerk can call on them.
Yep. We'll move over with Miss Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily Mattis. I've lived in Brentwood for a while now. I saw that this ordinance came up and I found it pretty concerning. I it seems like it would infringe a lot on kind of the green space within this community, especially people's private green space, and some of the gardens and the shrubs and the trees that really make Brentwood such a beautiful place to live. I have concerns about what other traffic calming measures and traffic safety measures have been employed before moving towards this decision. Because I feel like there can be some mitigations, whether it's mirrors, whether it's lights, that can be used to kind of make traffic patterns safer around here without having to cut down greenery. And the other maybe it seems a little severe measures that would go into enforcing this code. And that is all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I will point out that the town administrator is putting up a 1-minute warning in the chat when folks are talking. And he'll let folks know also when they have reached that 2 minutes. Before the town clerk calls on somebody else again, I will remind folks that if they so choose to speak live, then their written comments will not be read out loud, but they will be forwarded, as they already have been, to council. So, town clerk, carry on.
All right, next up we'll go with Brian.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, hey, thank you very much. So I submitted written comments on a previous version of this ordinance with my wife, so I trust that you have those in front of you. And, thank you for taking them into consideration. We had some fairly substantial concerns about the previous version, or one of the previous versions of this ordinance. Several of our neighbors, including some on this call, made points that we were concerned about. And, I commend the board on taking those concerns into consideration and making adjustments to the ordinance to make it more appropriate for our town. I mean, we certainly understand the need to legislate on this topic. But it's important, I think, not to make this ordinance unnecessarily broad or to infringe too much on property owners' rights. In the points that I made in my initial written submission, you were able to address most of them. However, there's one that still remains that concerns me quite a bit. In the current draft of this proposed ordinance, section 2J, you're defining a clear vision area. And in doing so, you say no obstruction can exceed 3 feet in height. While objectively that sounds okay, there's a conflict with the existing code that concerns me. And in particular, that's the ability of all corner lots to have fences up to 4 feet tall, right? So currently, under Brentwood Code section 50-7D and 50-7L1, corner lot fences are permitted to be up to 4 feet tall. So my concern is that if you have a new ordinance that restricts the height of visual obstructions to 3 feet, all of a sudden, all of these corner fences that have been standing for unknown periods of time, and those that were erected with proper permits and approval by the town would suddenly be rendered out of compliance, right? So that's—
I'm sorry, Mr. Krinsky, we're going to need to wrap things up. You're at 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
I will be quick. So that strikes me as problematic, and I would suggest that we go back to a 4 feet limit on our visual obstructions so that existing fences can stand. The second part of the existing code that's key is that fences on these corner lots can be are legal, provided 40% of it you can see through. So that's the other thing. I would request that the obstruction language in section 2J be raised to 4 feet, and you take into account the existing code that requires 40% of the fence to be able to be seen through, thereby allowing cars to see and traffic to be safe. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to encourage residents to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Moving forward, I will instruct the town administrator who is moderating this electronically to mute the speaker after 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You will be given a 1 minute warning. You will be given a 2 minute warning. Town clerk, you may continue.
All right, next up we'll go with E. Marshall.
Hi, sorry, this is Liz Marshall. Sorry about the earlier problem. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So I appreciate the efforts the council made to amend the ordinance in response to the last public meeting, but I continue to strenuously oppose this ordinance for the following reasons. First of all, we haven't been presented any statistics or evidence describing the problem that the ordinance proposes to solve. We also have not been presented statistics or evidence indicating that the proposed ordinance would solve that problem. If this is as it is a traffic problem, it seems that a traffic study and expert consult should be completed before legislation is passed that infringes on private property rights of residents. The residents also haven't been provided information on what other measures, such as traffic mirrors, were considered to solve what appears to be a localized traffic issue, or why such measures were deemed unacceptable. With respect to the specific language of the ordinance, I think that section G of the proposed ordinance is written so vaguely that it gives the town unacceptably broad authority to challenge residents' landscaping in the name of traffic safety. Section H is it's unclear to me when these shrubs are not adjacent to intersections what the purpose of section H is. Residents located adjacent to state roads are entitled to privacy in their front and backyards. Sections I and J, it seems to me that legislation that would require residents to remove landscaping or any other structure that exists on their own private property that they legally installed and maintained at their own expense, requiring them to remove it in the name of public safety constitutes a taking for which residents should be entitled compensation, which could become pricey. And then with respect to section L, while that section may be reasonable for the town right-of-way along streets and sidewalks, legislating that town staff or their agents can come onto private property within the clear vision area and destroy residents' private property constitutes trespass and an egregious abuse of municipal authority. And in general, it's unclear to me why this ordinance applies to fully controlled corners. At fully controlled corners where there are stop signs at every corner and all drivers are fully visible to one another when stopped, what role does the clear vision area play? Is it the responsibility of residents to correct for irresponsible drivers by providing them additional evidence about why it's not advisable to illegally run or roll through stop signs? This seems to me to be a serious infringement on residents' private property rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall.
We'll move on to Nigel.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
I don't think I could. That's a tough act to follow. Whoever just spoke basically summarized every single concern that I have better than I could say. But yeah, it feels like a huge unnecessary infringement on property owners, you know, and all of the green space. And then also, it doesn't make any sense that it would actually make anything safer. There's like a few corners where cutting down some shrubbery would be a good idea, but like otherwise this broad, like cutting down everyone's bushes within 3 feet of a road, it just seems totally crazy to me. So I'm not sure, like it doesn't seem like there's a lot of research to this legislation. It doesn't seem like there's like a logical basis to it, and it just seems like a huge overreach. And so I would highly advise all of the council people to vote against it because it doesn't make any sense, and it sounds like no one wants it. At least everyone in this meeting who cares about the town. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on the call who would like to make a public comment? All right, hearing none, we will mute all the viewers. Thank you very much for all of your comments. If I am correct, our next order of business will be to read the public comments that were submitted via email. And as a point of business, town clerk, if we may please exclude from those written comments what was submitted by folks who already spoke live. And those people include Brian Scretany, Nigel Dawson, Liz Marshall, and I'm unsure of Emily's last name, but I want to say Minor. So there's 4 we can set aside.
Mattis, but I
sorry?
didn't submit a comment. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. We have a lot of written comments to get through, but we will set aside those and we will read the others, or the town clerk will read the others. And just as we do with our folks who comment in person, we will limit the written comments to 2 minutes. I ask that the town clerk please read in a natural pace and in a natural inflection. And when we reach sort of a natural point after 2 minutes in which sort of the idea has been summed up, please come to a close and then move to the next comment. And I apologize, I should have asked folks who commented in person to identify themselves and their street address. Having not done that, town clerk, if we may do the same for written comments, that is just to identify their name, perhaps in their street, would be just fine. So, and if that information is not available, then that is okay.
All right, I'll go ahead and start with the first one. This one just came in a few minutes ago. So I'll start off, no street name. So we'll just go with the first name. Sarah. This ordinance comes from a worthy goal. However, I don't think it has thoroughly been thought out. As far as I know, the council doesn't contain traffic experts or city planners. We need to hear from experts before rushing to pass on an ordinance, especially because it would severely affect people's ability to control and use their private property. There's a lot of unanswered questions. Scheduling this meeting for a Saturday evening is shady. And then I'll go to the next one. That's okay. I know that was a short one, so.
Yes, please carry on. Thank you. Let us know when you've completed all the written comments.
Will do. All right, the next one comes from Camilla on 40th Street. Dear Madam Mayor and Town Council, I request that you delay vote on the ordinance 2023-03. If the rationality behind it is about traffic safety, I don't think cutting down trees and shrubs at intersections will address the main issue of drivers who refuse to obey signs that they are aware of but decide to ignore. We need more measures to slow down traffic, and there are many options out there. We need better sidewalks, speed bumps, rumble strips, cameras, lights around traffic stop signs. While some properties need to do a better job of trimming overhanging branches and excessive foliage, but it is not to overkill to issue a blanket order that would affect all properties in town where the problem does not exist. It is not the will of the majority of homeowners and residents of Brentwood to give Town Hall such wide-ranging powers. This does not make sense. What you decide on the vote and future ordinances will affect our decision on whether we vote you all in again. I foresee a lot of upset residents if this goes forward, as currently stated. Please slow this down until the effects and other remedies it can be studied better. Thank you. All right, this next comment comes from Megan. I know she read it a little bit, but she sent two different ones in. So I'm not sure if we go with just the one, or do we read the other one that was? So I know she did speak, but she had a different one.
I believe we had Emily speak. Is that what you're saying? But we have a written comment from Megan.
Yes. But do we she sent in two. Should we read both or just go with the
So
first one?
the most recent submission is the one we'll read 2 minutes of.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for your time and dedication to safety in our town with the proposed ordinance. I am nonetheless very concerned about its overbreadth, and there are still some confusing provisions. It is unclear on the face of this document what A through F unchanged means or refers to. I assume this cites to a related ordinance, but without the text fully incorporated, it seems ambiguous. This is especially confusing given how many versions of this ordinance have been issued. Additionally, many of our residents, myself included, don't know which of our roads are state roads and which aren't. I don't know where to find that information, so I don't actually know how this would apply to me or my neighbors. This is the primary reason I cannot support this so far. Is it possible to include information in the text of the ordinance about which roads this applies to or where to find that info? In terms of administration, this also puts a huge administrative burden on the town and residents. This version of the ordinance is more narrowly tailored than the last, but it seems logistical, like a lot to administer. Wouldn't the town resources be better spent by identifying the problem properties and providing a financial incentive to consent the town cutting back their hedges? Truly, it seems like $1,000 grant per problem property plus the arborist cost. This would cost the town $10,000 to solve, and the residents will be happier and better off. Compare that to the creation of this ordinance, which will cost countless hours of town staff, salaries, and town council time to administer this. Hand out citations, process appeals, process variances, handle legal challenges, etc., and will significantly impact residents' goodwill toward government. Doesn't seem worth it. And that was it for that comment. This next comment comes from Savannah on Taylor Street. Hello to our mayor and town council. This is my public comment regarding the shrubs and tree ordinance. I am not in favor of this ordinance being passed as written. I am a new neighbor having moved to Brentwood the last week of June, and unfortunately also one of the property owners who will be impacted should this ordinance move forward. In fact, before we moved to Brentwood, our property was photographed and used as an example of a problem corner in the related presentation on June 6th. Our privacy hedges have since been cut past 25 feet corner done by Brentwood before we moved, and we have cleaned up and cleared the fence. We want to be good neighbors by keeping visibility on the corner while also beautifying our lot with native flowers and other plants. The major selling point for us about our property in Brentwood was the potential for gardening, both food and natives. And the town's seeming commitment to native landscapes and plant life. This brings me to my main issues with the shrub and tree ordinance as currently written. Section H in particular seems to be targeting only a few properties, largely boarding 38th Street. With no clear public safety impact, I understand cutting back corners to increase visibility for cars and pedestrians. However, beyond this radius, cutting trees and shrubs back to 3 feet all along property lines does not increase visibility other than into folks' backyards. Mature shrubs and trees will be completely removed as a result of this ordinance, not just cut back, and Brentwood will lose greenery and key shade trees. Affected properties will either lose all privacy in their backyards or lose 3 feet of their property. Second, pushing the cost of public safety on private homeowners without looking into alternatives. Having a safe, walkable community is very important to me. When we first bought our home, I joined the Brentwood Facebook page and saw my future neighbors list their concerns about 38th Street traffic and several intersections along the route. I immediately thought about how we could help by taking down our fence on the corner and trimming some bushes, but I also read many great suggestions on structural improvements. I know there is a study being undertaken for 38 to recommend potential large-scale improvements by the county. However, solutions like posting police officers and adding traffic mirrors seem like inexpensive. Concrete steps in the town could also be made to alleviate the problems. I've combed the Brentwood website and haven't seen any mention of the town council exploring the alternatives. In summary, I believe in public safety, but I believe in it can happen without sacrificing all privacy or our beauty. Mature shade trees and shrubs. Thank you for considering a statement. And then this final last comment comes from, I'll say the last name, Minor. Hopefully I'm saying that right, from Barnum Street. Good afternoon. We are writing regarding ordinance 2023-03 about setting shrub tree requirements along roadways. We have reviewed this version of the proposed ordinance. At this point, we oppose the ordinance because it is unclear what its impact would be on our property. We kindly request clarification on the following items. What is the difference between a town street and a state road? We live on the corner of Barnum Street and 35th Street. Since the latter is more of an alley, would the ordinance apply to this particular corner? Is the alley considered a state road? The alley does not have a sidewalk, so would hedging alongside of that strip, even when away from the corner, be subject to H? Thank you for providing clarity. At this time, I think that the council should consider an ordinance establishing sightline requirements only at intersections with known issues like intersections on 38th Street, the intersections at Barnum and 35th Street are very quiet, little traffic, and there aren't any sidewalks. Anyway, on 35th Street Alley, not sure what value this ordinance would add. Thank you for consideration of our comments and request for clarity. Appreciate your work for the town in trying to improve safety for everyone.
Thank you, Larry. Do I assume that is the end of the public comments?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Well read. And thank you to all the residents who submitted those comments. We will now move to perhaps, and this is with the blessing of my council, perhaps one of us can make a motion to pass the ordinance. One of us may read the ordinance, and thereafter we can discuss it as a council. Does that order sound good to everybody?
Yes.
I've got one person who's got a hand up. That would be Councilmember Rauch. Would you like to say something now, or do you want to wait?
If I may quickly, as it pertains to the public comments that were submitted, I believe that there were additional comments, and I'm not sure if we're reading just a portion of what we received or reading all public comments that came into the email box. I'm not clear on the procedure on that.
Councilmember Rauch, can you speak specifically to the street or name of the resident whose comments are missing?
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking Matthews was.
Yep, there's Matthew from Barnum Street that was submitted a day or two ago.
Yep, let me search in my emails from info. I'm not sure. I don't want to hold the meeting up. I remembered there was that one, and I just wanted to be sure we had a procedure. Sorry.
And this is an important thing to hold up the meeting for, so I'm glad you brought it up. I have Matthew's email. Let me forward it to the town clerk. Give me a second. While I'm doing that, Councilmember Rauch, if you don't mind double checking along with myself.
I sure will. And I understand we're not reading those that spoke already, so I'm looking for folks that did not speak already. Did we read Pamela Moyer?
So Pamela Moyers came in just about an hour ago. We should include that. Can you forward that, please, to the town clerk, Councilmember Rauch?
I sure can, Vice Mayor. Except I pressed it and I looked at it and then I lost it.
I have Moyer's here. I can go ahead and read it. If you don't mind, is that okay, Vice Mayor?
That'll be fine. Thank you.
Dear Madam, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Dear Madam Mayor and Town Council, I request that you delay the vote on Ordinance 2303. If the rationale behind it is traffic study, I don't think cutting down trees and shrubs at intersections will address the main issues of drivers who refuse to obey stop signs that are aware of but decide to ignore. We need more measures to slow down traffic, and there are many options out there. We need better sidewalks, speed humps, rumble strips, cameras, lights around stop signs. While some properties need better trimming, overhanging branches, and excessive foliage, but it is overkill to issue a blanket order that would affect all properties in the town where the problem does not exist. It is not the will of the majority of the homeowners, excuse me, and residents of Brentwood to give town hall such wide-ranging powers. This does not make sense. Why? Let's see. What you decide on this vote with future ordinance will affect your decision whether or not we'll vote for you again at all. I foresee a lot of residents. If this goes forward, currently stated, please slow this down until the effects of other remedies can be stated. I thought the town clerk read this, but that's okay. The next person who I thought,
I think you did because it sounds familiar.
yeah, that
And
sounds very familiar.
Councilmember Ralph, I can't find Matthew's comments, but I know I read it when he sent it in. Are you
Okay,
finding it?
well, he did not send it to info because I do not have it.
Hmm.
And if whoever has it can forward it to info that we can have official record of it, that would really help us to make sure that we do this correctly and make sure everyone's residence comment is made. So if
I
someone,
will forward it right now.
I
do have
appreciate
it.
that. Fantastic. Town clerk, do you want to read? I'll read this one as well as soon as it's received.
I've just sent the email.
And I have it. It's Matthew, and I'm not going to butcher his last name. But he lives on Barnum Street. Let me see. I'm trying to go through this really quickly. I support the portion of the ordinance, but object to another aspect. I'm motivated by the desire of greater public safety for Brentwood's residents, especially as pedestrians. This ordinance certainly is desirable for the purpose of keeping sidewalks clear for pedestrians, and pedestrian access is already relatively dangerous in Brentwood's current car-focused design. Overgrowth on the sidewalks excessive, which makes walking more difficult and dangerous. And this ordinance should be refocused with the specific goal of pedestrian access and to emphasize the focus of increasing convenience for car access as it currently does. To briefly make a point about prioritizing pedestrian safety over car accidents, car-to-car accidents in Brentwood are likely almost and never fatal or dangerous relative to cars striking pedestrians. To the main point of the ordinance to cut back greenery and other obstructions is greater visibility at sections. I agree with the goal of increasing safety, but there are better solutions. Using example of pedestrian intersection visibility problem at 38th Street in Volta will not solve by cutting back shrubs, but simply moving the west side of the action point of Volta forward to 38th Street, something that can be accomplished simply by and effectively. This solves the issue of visibility of vehicles coming and stopping simultaneously, increasing pedestrian safety by effectively striking the area in the intersection, photo below. Moving up the stop sign to a point of the sidewalk gives a larger safety for pedestrians, makes cars stop at Volta visible to those stopped at 38th Street, and prevents the reduction of attractive green space for the public and private residents as well. Pedestrians crossing this intersection have to worry about cars traveling in 6 different directions. So making a visual physical space that causes more confusion for the driver, forces greater attention, slows them down, and causes less anxiety for the intersect pedestrian whose safety is at greater risk. On another note, side note, part of the issue is that 38th Street is designed for non-resident
Mr.
traffic.
Gaston,
Yep,
I'm sorry.
ran out of 2 minutes. Okay.
Mr. Gaston, we're at 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for that reminder. It was,
No, I know you were trying to get through the whole
I was
thing.
trying to get through it, so that's why I was trying to read fast. So I apologize.
All right, I think as far as I can tell, we have read all the public comments. It seems like we had only missed that one from Mr. Matthew on Barnum Street. Thank you, Mr. Gaston, for reading that. So our order of business will be to, for someone to make a motion to pass the ordinance. Then one of us will read the ordinance and then we will discuss before voting on the ordinance. So may I please have a motion on the ordinance?
I move to adopt the ordinance in regards to tree shrub proposed by the mayor and town council. What's the ordinance number? And I'll put that in the motion.
The ordinance number is 2023-03.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-03 in regards to tree shrubs and vegetation proposed by the mayor and town council.
Thank you, Councilmember Taylor. Would anybody like to volunteer to read the ordinance? If not, I'll be your guy. Ordinance 2023-03, an ordinance establishing an amendment to the Brentwood Code.
Vice Mayor,
yes,
one whole
yes,
second. Let me pull it up so people can look at it. I had the agenda up. Let me pull up the ordinance so that everyone can read it and see it as you read it. Is that fair?
Thank you. Yes,
You're
sir.
welcome. No worries. Give me 1 second. I'm stopping the share. I'm going back to the ordinance. And if I'm not mistaken, this is what we're reading.
Beautiful.
Correct?
Can we make it larger?
There you go. Is that good?
If you can make it any larger, that's great.
Oh yeah, I can make it larger. No worries.
Just a little, just to fill in the page. Perfect.
Okay. And just knock stuff out.
Ordinance 2023-03, an ordinance establishing an amendment to the Brentwood Code. Chapter 44:7, Section 2 and Section 4, brush, grass, and weeds. Whereas the life and health of the town of Brentwood's residents are our utmost priority, and whereas traffic crashes are among the leading causes of death and injury within the United States and the state of Maryland, and whereas traffic deaths and serious injuries in the United States have disproportionately impacted pedestrians, cyclists, people of color, low-income households, older adults, and youth, people with disabilities, and households with limited vehicular access, and whereas it is the express interest of this town to avoid preventable accidents and deaths by maintaining clear lines of vision at intersections for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. Section 1, now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the mayor and council of the town of Brentwood as subsection 44:7, section 2 of the Brentwood Code is hereby amended as follows. Section 2 Code, A through F, unchanged. G, no person may maintain or allow to exist on the property which they own or which is in their possession or control, plantings, trees, shrubs, hedges, or other vegetation, or projecting overhanging limbs thereof, which obstruct the view necessary for the safe operation of motor vehicles, or otherwise cause danger to the public in the use of town streets. It shall be the duty of the person who owns, possesses, or controls the property to remove or trim and keep trimmed any obstructions to the view. H, no hedge bordering within 3 feet of any state road may grow to a height of more than 3 feet, measured from the surface of the sidewalk, grade, or path. I, a clear vision area shall be maintained on the corners of all property adjacent to an intersection. The clear vision area for all corner lots that are adjacent to a state road shall be that area within 25 feet of the corner of a property located at an intersection of 2 streets. The clear vision area for all other corner lots shall be that area within 15 feet of the corner of a property located at an intersection of 2 streets. J, a clear vision area shall contain no plantings, trees, shrubs, hedges, or other vegetation or projecting overhanging limbs thereof, structure or temporary or permanent obstruction, except for a utility pole or retaining wall, except when the height of the obstruction does not exceed 3 feet in height, measured from the top of the curb, or where no curb exists from the street center line grade. Trees exceeding this height may be in this area, provided branches and foliage are removed to a height of 8 feet above the street centerline grade, or in the case of saplings, maintained to not obstruct the view necessary for the safe operation of motor vehicles or otherwise cause danger to the public in the use of town streets. K. Upon the failure, refusal, or neglect of the owner resident to maintain a clear vision and to cut plantings, trees, shrubs, hedges, or other vegetation, or projecting overhanging limbs as required herein, the town shall notify the owner occupier of such condition and shall order such person to comply within 10 business days. Such an order shall be in writing and may be served personally to or sent by ordinary mail to the owner resident of the property. L. If the order is not complied with within the 10-day period, the town may cause the plantings, trees, shrubs, hedges, or other vegetation or projecting overhanging limbs to be cut and removed, or may have such failure prosecuted as a violation of the ordinance or both. M. Whenever it shall be necessary for the town to have the plantings, trees, shrubs, hedges, or other vegetation, or projecting overhanging limbs thereof cut and removed as provided above, the cost shall constitute a debt owed to the town, and unless paid, the same shall be added to the personal property tax bill or real estate tax bill sent to the owner, and may thereafter be collected in the same manner as taxes are collected. Or if the mayor and council are so determined, said charges may be collected as debt. Section 2. Now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the mayor and council of the town of Brentwood, subsection 44.7, section 4 of the Brentwood Code is amended as follows. Section 4, exceptions. A through D, unchanged. E. Request for variance. The owner-occupier of a property may submit a request for variance within 10 business days of receiving a courtesy notice. Variance requests are available from the town clerk. Variance requests are available from the town clerk during regular business hours. Any request for a variance submitted past 10 business days of initial notice from the town will be deemed ineligible. Any request for a variance must be accurate and complete before it may be considered received by the town clerk. 1. Responsibility of the town. Once a timely and complete variance request is received by the town clerk, the Brentwood Police Chief or their agent and a Brentwood Code Officer will have 5 business days to add their recommendations in writing. Thereafter, the variance request is to be considered by the council in the next regularly scheduled public meeting. The council shall issue a written decision, either granting with modifications or conditions, or denying the variance request within 5 business days from the closing of the meeting. The council shall provide a copy of its written decision to the persons of record. 2. Standard of review. Any request for variance not related to pedestrian and vehicular safety will be deemed ineligible. The council may consider granting a variance when I, the granting of the variance will not substantially impair the intent, purpose, or integrity of this ordinance, will not conflict with county law, and will not adversely affect the health, safety, welfare, or peace of the general public, and either II, a specific parcel of land has exceptional narrowness, shallowness of shape, exceptional topographic conditions, or other extraordinary situations or conditions, or III, the strict application of the general regulations herein will result in peculiar and unusual practical difficulties to, or exceptional or undue hardship upon, the owner-occupier of the property. F. Any person aggrieved by a final order of the mayor and town council issued under this section may file a petition for judicial review with the clerk of the Circuit Court of Prince George's County. The procedures for an appeal from a final order of the mayor and town council shall be governed by Title VII, Chapter 200, Judicial Review of Administrative Agency Decisions of the Maryland Rules as amended. Section 3. Be it further ordained that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and any of the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 4. Be it further ordained, this ordinance shall become effective at the expiration of 30 calendar days following its adoption. And therein ends the reading of ordinance 2023-03. Thank you, Mr. Gaston, for following along. And council, I will throw it back to you to offer your comments. And I don't think we need to raise our hand. We've been working together long enough that we can ebb and flow together. Who would like to begin the comments?
Vice Mayor, if I may,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
agree with Mr. Scretany, who spoke in regards to, I believe it was section H, where there's a differential in heights. This particular ordinance proposes 3 feet. What we currently have says 4 feet. I just like to have some consistency so we can, my request is that we bump this up to 4 feet so that there's continuity between existing code.
I think I remember us discussing that when we originally wrote it. And there was, I think I remember 2 things that we talked about. One was an improved ability to see small children at the 3 feet level. And I do believe that we were thinking that down the road, we would be changing our ordinances such that they would be more in keeping with the county code of fences being 3 feet. That is actually sort of an exception that Brentwood allows 4. But I could be wrong about that second point. That may have just been offline conversations, not something we talked about in council. Can anybody remember sort of that 3 foot, 4 foot conversation?
That is correct. This is Councilmember Monroe, Vice Mayor. So we were having that discussion about, and I was the one advocating for as low as possible in order to consider small children. So I'm amenable to it aligning with the 4 feet if we don't have a game plan in place to figure out getting it down to 3 feet. So whether it's 3 or 4, my intent here is to just raise a concern that small children at intersections where there's low visibility, we just want to try to do what we can to get maximum visibility at those intersections. So
I do recall we had addressed that before. My concern is it would cause such a financial burden for people who have been allowed to have fences at 4 feet to now have to go back and remove them and have them taken down to 3 feet. If the council is amenable, I'd just like to have it stay at 4 feet and have this current ordinance reflect 4 feet.
Councilmember Rauch, your hand is up. Feel free to speak.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Procedural question, please. My understanding, again, I apologize for being new member on the council and not knowing all the process, but my understanding is that this is the vote that must be taken tonight. So it's no more than 60 days after the ordinance is introduced. I'm not sure if at this time we're able to make amendments to the ordinance language or not. I am sorry, let me pose that as a question. Are we able to make amendments or not at this point? My understanding is that we're supposed to vote on it as it is.
I believe that we could make an amendment. The Councilmember Taylor would amend her motion, in such a way that reflects the desire of council to change it from 3 feet to 4 feet. I will say this, however, we specifically took out the word fence from subsection J so that wouldn't be an issue. Because that was part of the original language, and I believe Mr. Bryan was speaking to the original version that included fence, but we actually took fence out for that reason, so that it would deal mostly or be mostly dealing with things that grow. Is there something, Councilmember Taylor, in the revised version that would indicate to you that fences would fall into the purview of this ordinance?
I'm sorry, I have some background noise.
While we're waiting for things to quiet down at the council member's house, I can, for me, the 4 foot versus 3 foot is not, it's not a deal breaker for me. I think, all of these steps towards improved safety, they're incremental steps, right? So, if we agree that 3 feet is a safer height than 4 feet, well, then I say let's keep this 3 feet and let's change our ordinance regarding fences. And certainly we can grandfather, certainly we can allow sort of those legacy fences to be there at 4 feet when we get to that point. But I don't want to take, I don't want to take a step back while we're taking such a big step forward. That would be my 2 cents. Councilmember Monroe, do you have your hand up?
Sorry about that. I couldn't unmute. So since I was the one that sort of laid that groundwork for that initial comment, I'll just repeat sort of my concern. And mostly it was to just try to figure out a way for us to align with the county's code, which I specifically speaking to the part that says the corner lot obstructions, right? So there's no visual obstructions more than 3 feet high above the curb level. And for me, when it came to safety of someone with small children, I was trying to figure out how can we just keep visual obstructions as low as possible without it being unreasonable. So it's not to say that someone would have to rip out an existing fence, for example. And I think I'd be fine with the spirit of it is I would be fine with things getting grandfathered in. Vice Mayor Leggett, you're correct in that the spirit of what I was trying to convey then was that moving forward, we should try to align to the 3 feet since it was the standard from the county's perspective. And we just, as a town, had been sort of operating higher than that. And again, the spirit of it for me, the intent is, maximizing safety as much as possible. I have additional comments, but I just want to keep them focused on to this particular topic at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Monroe. I think to your point, some of our residents have, wanted to make sure that our decisions are well researched and not coming from the clear blue sky. And I think that's a great example that Councilmember Monroe just spoke to there concerning intersections, following the same standards that the county have decided are the safest standards in regards to fences. And as we all know, no one can see through a fence any better than they can see through a hedge. So that's a great example of how we're using the expertise of others to guide the language of this ordinance.
Councilmember, we have a
Councilmember-
number of comments in the chat. I know that you were having your discussion for council. I just want to make you aware of it. That's all.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the comments in the chat. That would be the equivalent of somebody yelling out during the meeting. And so the public comments time has closed. Folks are, welcome to chat amongst themselves, but those will not be entered into the public record. Councilmember Taylor, is there anything that you wanted to add to the discussion about the 3 foot, 4 foot? Are you available to speak to that now?
I respect the body. I respect Councilmember Monroe's position. I still would just like to have some continuity and keep it at 4 feet. However, one question in the chat that I would like to specifically have addressed is someone wanted to know specifically what we're the state roads. So initially, this ordinance was to address the entire town. We've since taken that down to roads that are specifically maintained and controlled by the state of Maryland. That includes Rhode Island Avenue. That includes 38th Street. I believe our portion of 34th Street is included in that as well, but it's not.
Just 38th and Route 1.
Just 38th and Route 1. So 38th and Route 1 will be the only streets impacted by this ordinance. One other thing, and I'm sorry, because I don't want to. Are you saying no?
That is incorrect. That is an incorrect analysis of the ordinance. There are specific, I'm sorry if I may, Councilmember Taylor.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
There are specific areas in the ordinance that are addressing only state roads, and there are specific areas that address things that are not labeled as state roads. So there are two separate areas.
I apologize. What I meant to say is that Rhode Island and 38th would be the streets most dramatically impacted by the ordinance. Please stop.
Councilmember Taylor, my discussion on that point would be that I'm not sure that that's the correct analysis. Most dramatically impacted.
So I think the facts are, if you live along a state road, and that would be Route 1 or 38th Street, the clear view area of the intersection that would be required would be 25 feet. And any hedge bordering a state road, that is 38th Street or Route 1, would need to be trimmed to a height of 3 feet. All other roads, there are no provisions regarding hedges along roadways. However, there are still provisions on intersections, and that is a 15 feet clear vision area. So 15 feet versus 25 feet, and a 3-foot hedge along state roads versus grow your hedges as you like on any other road. And it's, again, the 15-foot rule versus 25-foot rule came out of discussions that we had at that original hearing, where residents asked us to create different provisions for different streets. And looking at the existing Brentwood Code, there's a 15-foot requirement of no parking to the intersection. So that seemed to be consistent. So that's where we got the 15 and the 25 from. Councilmember Monroe.
So I'd like to add some comment, and is it okay? I'm sorry, this may, I don't want to overstep. Are we still talking specifically about the 3 feet, 4 feet? I am amenable for it to align the 4 feet. I don't want to hold this up by being dogmatic about 3 versus 4. So I am amenable to that, to be clear. And then I just want to give a general comment to some things that sort of capture and I'll try to keep this to 2 minutes, to capture sort of, at least for me, my personal intent, that may also answer some of the questions and things that were raised. So I sense that there was some concern around whether we were taking sort of a multi-pronged approach. And so for me personally, having worked with Councilman Roque, for example, on the Safe Streets for All application, the federal application that gives you specifically money towards a plan, and also they also give funds towards quick action items you can take. So during that process, we also expanded upon the data that was shared at the hearing. And so that data helped reinforce my concern and why we needed to at least do some immediate action with the intent to doing something long-term. And what I mean by that is the data tracked from, and we can share this again publicly with folks, the data tracked from 2018 through 2023, thus far reported 461 total incidents, including hit and run events. And in 8 of those incidents, occupants were sent to the hospital. Now, if you go overall, there's also 2,440 incidents of speeding. And then for me personally, again, having the kids with small children in the room, there's the near misses that don't get captured in the data. And so I completely agree with the thoughts behind, let's look at all these other things which are part of the grant application, and that we want to do these other things, these other measures for infrastructure and safety improvements. I agree with that, but I think immediate solutions, things that we can do, this is one of them. It's not the only one, right? So where we can get clear sight lines, let's do it. Where we can shift the stop sign in locations where we need to, absolutely. And I'll be looking for those discussions come August when we meet again, right? So anything that we can do immediately, I am all for. The long-term solutions, we're doing two things, right? We're doing the federal application. If by September we don't hear that we have secured that application, then we will take the funds that we can leverage from our town funds to just do our own safety study, which won't have as big as a bank account to it that the federal application and those funds that they can give us. Sure, that would be great if we could get the federal funds, but if we can't, we'll do what we can with the funds we have to do immediately move towards a plan. So I just didn't want folks thinking that we were just making this decision in the bubble without intent towards long-term and short-term measures. At least for me personally, I'll speak for myself on that. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I think, Councilmember, that's a great point. And before I piggyback off that, I'm going to allow Councilmember Rauch to go next.
Feel free, Vice Mayor.
After you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I appreciate, thank you so much, Councilmember Monroe, for sharing the longer term, bigger picture of what the council and town staff are trying to do to improve safety in the town. I just want to be clear, though, that we can absolutely share that data that you mentioned, but that data also does not include the locations of where those accidents were occurring. So I don't want people to walk away from this meeting thinking that they were all on Rhode Island or all on 38th or wherever, you know, for good or for ill. I just want to be really clear that those are incidents and accidents that we want to get to what is called Vision Zero in Prince George's County, which is 0 accidents or incidents of any pedestrians, bike riders, or people in motor vehicles. That said, I still have concerns about the ordinance language, and so I'll stop there so that Vice Mayor can piggyback off of what Councilmember Monroe shared.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Rauch. I think, you know, this is just the next chapter in what has been a nearly 2-year effort to improve traffic safety along 38th Street primarily, but throughout the entire town. It started with our talks with the State Highway Administration. It started with improved painting and lines on the roads and no parking zones. It includes supplying for the permission from the state to run traffic cameras, not just red light, but speed cameras as well on state roads. There's a lot of different measures that we've been working towards, and this is one of them. And I know that this feels maybe out of the blue for some, but for me, it's just, you know, it's one step of many in which we're taking to safeguard our streets as we find Brentwood becoming more busy. And as things change on the streets, so do our laws need to change with them to ensure that folks are safe. And for me, this is sort of just a natural outgrowth, not just of what we've seen, but also, you know, of what we've heard. When we had that traffic meeting all the way back in May, several residents, you know, brought it to our attention that this is a problem. That is that there's intersections that have 0 visibility from one stop sign to the next. And so you just cross your fingers and you gun it. You know, the #1 place for accidents along 38th is Allison. The #2 is along Taylor, and #3 is along Volta. And we can pretty much safely say that Taylor and Volta have in the past traditionally very poor sightlines. I would also remind folks that when we had that safety meeting that we had state representatives from Annapolis implore us to put an ordinance in the books to address these intersections. And lastly, I'll just say, just to sort of offer context, is that, this type of ordinance is in effect in hundreds, if not thousands, of towns and cities across America. And in my due diligence of doing research into other towns that have similar ordinances, I've probably dived deep into about 50. And I can say without a doubt that our ordinance, the one that we're voting on today, that includes provisions for saplings and a very clear variance procedure for residents who would request a variance, and different standards for different streets, makes this ordinance one of the most progressive ordinances of its type in the nation. And I can say that without a hesitation. And it's a perfect balance, I believe. Maybe not perfect for everyone, but that's sort of the nature of compromise, right? But it is a good balance of addressing the needs of individuals while also protecting the greater good. And if I may quote our town attorney, this is the exact sort of work that councils are for. This is why we're here. And so I feel like in the context of the last few years, in the context of the conversations that have been had, this ordinance makes sense to me. And so I'm eager to carry on the conversation. I apologize, I just got on my soapbox a little bit, but. Is there any other discussion from council? Are there any other sticking points? Councilmember Rauch.
Sorry, thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd just like to be brief in putting my discussion comments on here. That I do still have concerns about the language, and I also, and this is not, we've also discussed, and Vice Mayor and I have discussed, and I'm grateful to the council for listening to comments and concerns at the first hearing where residents came and shared their comments and concerns, and that I want residents to understand that we did as a council go away from that meeting and strive to improve the original the original language and intent to open up space for the concerns that our residents shared with us, including adding that variance. I still have concerns about it though, and I think you can't rewind time, unfortunately, but and I understand, and from my heart I understand that when I first came into council, we had the special meeting on 38th because there were grave accidents happening and activities happening there that elevated the council to need to take action, and that was a very important meeting. I'm so glad our state partners and State Highway Administration heard our call for assistance, and I will have to go back and look at the live meeting because I do not recall that State Highway Administration's recommendation was that we pursue this ordinance, and my apologies that I don't recall that. I'm looking forward to getting their results. I wish that we would have, as a council, started this process together, doing the research together, to be able to build an ordinance that would work for the greatest good of the most people in Brentwood. As I've heard, I'm quoting from one of my council members who shared that slogan. But I just don't think that we've done that. I think, and I believe that within the 60 days that we've had to discuss the ordinance, I don't think that we've reached, from my perspective, the ground, for me to be able to vote positively and affirmatively on this. So thank you for my discussion points.
Thank you, Councilmember Rauch. And just a point of clarification, we heard from our elected state representatives in Annapolis that we needed an ordinance like this. The State Highway Administration did not weigh in on any specifics.
Thank you for the clarification. I believe Councilmember Taylor had entered that into the chat, so I appreciate that clarification.
Maybe they did, but that's not, I don't want to speak if I'm not certain of it. So, all right. So, if there are no other comments from council, I just want to wrap up the 3-foot, 4-foot discussion so that Councilmember Taylor knows how to make her motion. It sounds like Councilmember Monroe was amenable to 4 feet. It sounded like Councilmember Taylor was amenable to either one. I fall more in the 3-foot category. Councilmember Taylor, any final words about that portion? Don't you love it when I put you on the spot?
No, I don't have any other questions about that section.
Okay. Councilmember Taylor, would you be in favor of a motion to adopt this ordinance with the provision of 3 feet being universally changed to 4 feet?
I am more than happy to accommodate.
Councilmember Monroe, would you be amenable to that?
I am amenable to that.
Councilmember Taylor, do you mind just withdrawing your motion and just starting fresh?
No problem. Before I do that, are there any other amendments that we would like to have noted in the new motion? Something that came up when I made the recommendation about 4 feet is that the current code notes that there has to be 40% visibility. Do we want to include that in this as well?
No, I'm not sure how we can measure that. I would like to leave that out. Especially considering that things grow, meaning that what may be 40% visible today may be not 40% visible in a week's time.
I would like to withdraw my previous motion and move to adopt. I move to adopt ordinance 2023-03 regarding trees and ordinance, provided that section H be changed to represent a height of 4 feet for vegetation growth.
Thank you, Councilmember Taylor. If our town clerk is still with us, will he please call the roll?
Yep. Councilmember Lauren Rauch.
Clarification point, this is for the whole ordinance, including the amendment. Is that correct?
Correct. So this is for ordinance 2023-03 in its entirety with the change of 4 feet to, I'm sorry, with the change of 3 feet to 4 feet for subsection H under section 2.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I
I
vote no.
apologize, subsection J. It looks like Mr. Scretney has noted in the chat.
Well, if we want to, and I'm sorry to just talk over you, we can do H, J, right? I mean, we can just change it in the whole thing, right? So wherever it says 3 feet, we can change it to 4 feet.
Yes.
Okay.
We did say universally change to 4 feet.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think your motion, however, specifically said H.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-03 regarding trees and shrubs to reflect a vegetation height of 4 feet everywhere in the ordinance where it was initially reflected as 3 feet.
Thank you, Councilmember Taylor. Assuming the rest of council is clear on the motion before them, I ask the town clerk to call the roll.
All right, I'll go from the beginning again. We got Councilmember Lauren Rout,
No.
Councilmember Kiana Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcus Monroe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stefan Legging,
Yes.
and lastly, Mayor Rocio Terminio Lopez.
All right. The motion is approved and the ordinance is adopted. Thank you, council. Moving on to our next order of business is agenda item number 3. That's the 39th Street property line. And I believe our town administrator, Mr. Gaston, has some information he'd like to share with us.
I would. Thank you very much. There was a discussion about the property line for 39th Street. CPJ was our consultant, and they have done some extensive research. As it turns out, the property line for the town of Brentwood, so from the curb, 11 feet 3 inches in, is actually town property. So with that being said, the tree that is in question will be removed next Friday by Prestige Tree Ordinance. So that tree will be removed. Just want to let everybody know that the town, if it so desires, if it wants to install a sidewalk on that particular property, it could stretch all the way 11 feet 3 inches in. So that may affect some of the individuals that live on 39th Street's property line. So that's why we did 3 houses. We did I think 4428, don't get me wrong on the actual addresses, but the 3 houses that we did, that way we were able to establish what the extension of the line is, if you will. So long story short is from the curb, 12 feet in is town property.
If I remember correctly, we authorized you weeks ago to.
Correct. And I apologize. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Once and this was a timing issue. Once the property line was established, I was given the direction to remove the tree ASAP. Councilmember, I'm sorry, I'm not ready to the meeting. Vice Mayor, you want to address Councilmember Rowe?
I'm so sorry, I didn't see. Yes, Councilmember Rauch, please speak up.
No problem. I'm trying to follow
No, you're wonderful.
standard
I'm sorry.
procedure. Thank you so much, Town Administrator, Mr. Gaston, for that and for your hard work in getting that company to hurry and decide that, because it's such an important decision. Question, does the tree company do an assessment of of how damaged the tree is, or do they just chop the whole thing down, or are there parts that they'll remove? What is the scope that the tree company is set to work on that tree for?
The scope is that this tree was somewhat livable but damaged. Our issue is that limbs are falling off of the tree and they are falling into the street, they're falling into the residence yard, Not this past storm, but a previous storm, a limb actually fell onto their sidewalk and some branches had. So while the tree on the bottom end, and I'm not an arborist, Vice Mayor could jump in on this. While the tree on the lower end is maybe solid, the limbs on the upper end are falling and they are creating a tremendous safety hazard for the individuals that park and or walk around the tree. Our code enforcement has put out cones and there is no parking near this tree. Come Friday or Saturday morning, this tree will no longer exist. I can't give you an update on the health of the status of the tree, but I assure you that the resident that lives at that particular property will be glad it's gone.
My concern is that I absolutely, I know the issues there and the safety concerns, but is it necessary to remove the entire trunk of the tree? Is that something that the arborist can assess when starting the work and determine whether or not there are no safety issues with leaving part of the trunk, as it were?
That is a conversation that I will have with him next week. And I will update the council on the status of what their strong recommendation is.
Councilmember Rauch, may I ask a clarifying question? Are you looking to whether the tree may be able to like live a few more years if we don't completely cut it down to the ground? Or are you more interested in sort of the benefit, sort of the environmental benefit of leaving a larger trunk there?
Both. We don't, we just kicked off the tree committee, and one of the things that the committee is interested in looking at is, how to help the town develop policy for municipal trees, but also for residential trees and cutting and trimming. And so we're not at that point yet to make any recommendations. I'm just hoping that we can preserve as much of our, natural resources as possible, while putting safety first. So clearly not, keeping any kind of branches hanging that, would be issue, and the arborist is, the expert, so they would be able to make an assessment and at the time decide whether or not any of the tree would be salvageable. So for both reasons. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking through the tree audit that we had done. I guess that was not even last year. It was in
2019.
November of 21, yeah. And I think at the time, we thought that this tree was on private property, so it was not included in the audit. But in my sort of, my experience would tell me that this tree is severely diseased and it's dying. It's close to dead. If you were to drive by there today and look up at the branches that are still alive, you'll see how severely diseased it is. So by my sort of layman's estimation, it doesn't have much of a natural life left at all, even if we weren't to cut it down ourselves. But like I say, unfortunately, we didn't have that on our inventory back in 2021.
It sounds like, Mr. Gaston, that you would be amenable to talking with the tree company, and their assessment will drive your decision as to whether or not the whole thing has to go, or a majority, or whatever the decision is.
The town of Brentwood is a tree loving community. Let's be clear. Unfortunately, a number of trees that were planted, I want to say 50, 60 years ago, and Vice Mayor will jump on and give me his expertise on what the name of that brand of tree was. But unfortunately, they are, and I use this term loosely, dropping like flies. Their life expectancy is something I've never heard of, right? At 40 years, they die. And that tree is no longer used by town municipalities. They go for the shorter, bushier tree, and Vice Mayor can tell me what the brand is because I'm not a tree expert, but they no longer use the trees that were planted 50, 60 years ago. And Vice Mayor, you're going to tell me what the name of the tree is. But they're just dropping like flies. And so what the town is, and what I'm concerned about, is the safety of our residents as they walk around and duck limbs, and limbs fall on cars and things of that nature. And it's this branch, it's this native, whatever the name of the tree is.
You're thinking of locust trees.
There you go.
You're thinking of locust trees. This, however, is an oak tree, and there's a pretty bad fungus that's kind of ripping through town right now, killing a lot of our oak trees. In fact, I would say any trees that the town has had to remove in the last year, probably 3 out of 4 have been oak trees because of this disease. And that's the tree in question, is an oak tree. It's either a red oak or a pin oak, one of the two, but it's an oak.
And I apologize.
That's okay.
So as chair of the sustainability committee, I would just ask that the tree company please make the expert decision as to how far down the tree needs to be cut, if that's something that's possible.
Well, I will definitely make that request from our tree experts, and that's one of the reasons why we use the tree experts that we use, not just a tree cutting service. They actually are arborists, and they know the life and long-term longevity of trees. So that's one of the reasons why we use them.
I greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions about the 39th Street property line or trees on that property?
Fantastic. So like I said, the tree will be gone. Excuse me. After the assessment, at least the majority of the tree, especially the danger limbs, will be removed by Saturday morning. And our police department, code enforcement, and public works are all aware that they're going to block off the street and things like that, whatever they need to do to take care of the tree.
All right, well, moving on to agenda item number 4, I would like to hear if Mr. Gaston can give us an update on the engineering quotes. However, I will add a caveat, which is that I believe Mayor Rocio Treminio Lopez is the only council member that was on council when one of the 3 bidders, shall we say, did the engineering work for Allison Street. Is that correct, Marcus Monroe? Were you on council when Allison Street had their sidewalks put in?
Yeah, I just joined council, so it was wrapping up. So I wasn't a part of the acquisition part of it, but I was still here with the overlap on that work.
Oh, okay. So you could speak perhaps to the towns dealing with that company and how they provided their engineering services.
Yes, as much as I was involved with, yes. So
then I withdraw my caveat. Mr. Gaston, go straight ahead.
No problem. So we had, long story short, for those who live on 38th Place, the town is looking to, and I'm just trying to catch everybody up, the town is looking to install a sidewalk from Allison to 39th. The town council's position is to hire an engineering company to oversee the entire project. We have 3 quotes. One is from GLW. Another one is from Milestone, who's actually renovating the firehouse. And then the person that Vice Mayor is speaking about is Michael Clare. I'm not sure if I got his name correct. The council agreed to the project. However, they asked me to reach out to those 3 companies to ask them to provide some references. Michael Clare did not provide a number of references. His position was that he had done work with the town before and that he was too busy. Milestone provided, I think it looked like 6 or 7 references, and GLW did not provide any references at all. The differences in the prices of the contract, if anybody's interested, Mr. Clare says he'll oversee the project for $4K. Milestone, I think it was like 14,000, and then GLW, which is another air engineering firm, theirs was at 38,000. Does that answer your questions?
It does. I think for me, I just we've worked with Milestone over the last couple of years, so I think we have a fairly good grasp on how that company operates. And I was going to ask the mayor and Councilmember Monroe if they can speak a little bit to the company that did the engineering services for Allison Street.
Well, I mean, trying to answer this in a way that I don't know if it was oversight or the construction who was at fault with this, but there were some complaints about the installation of the permeable concrete on Allison afterwards. Workmanship was a concern, and probably some of it to this day you can kind of see when you walk down. It just, some things didn't quite come out as projected. And that was just personal observation and observation of other council members or anyone just walking the street. And so that was my only concern from that project. But I didn't have any other experience for anything else that Michael Clark had done, any of the other projects. And I'm saying Michael Clark, but what's his company's name? Is it EcoSite?
It's equal. I'm sorry. Am I on? It's
You
EcoSite.
are.
Yes, it
EcoSite.
is.
Sorry, I want to speak with his company name, not personal, but EcoSite.
Now
that was
let
my
me be
only
clear.
concern from the time.
EcoSite was the engineering firm. He actually hired another firm that we used to actually do the work. I thought it was R&R.
And that's why I phrase it that way. Like, I don't know where the blame lies without someone actually, you know, from that time pulling it back up and looking into it and doing a. Unfortunately, we didn't do a sort of like exit interview / something to sort of address like, hey, what went wrong, what went right. But the end result was there were some workmanship issues, in my opinion, with that sidewalk, and so that's the only thing that jumps out from that time. Hopefully that's helpful. The other part of it is I'm concerned anytime someone says either they're too busy or they didn't feel like they should provide. Just as a blanket statement, I think everyone should provide what's requested by the person who puts out an RFP. I'll leave that comment at that. Or request from the client, but anyway, yeah.
Understood. So thank you for that. Does anybody else have any questions? And I actually have numbers. I actually pulled them up. So Milestone is going to provide total, looks like 17,000. And then sorry about that. GLW, they said that they would do it for, give me a sec. Where is that number? Looks like almost $30,000. 20 for the construction overview, construction observation. Then another 8,500 for boundary assessment, and then Michael Clare said he would do it for 4,000. The project itself is approximately going to cost about $150,000. This quote was a year old, so I'm sure the price has gone up, but that's what the cost is at this juncture. Does anybody? I hope that answered your questions. Anybody have any other comments?
I would just say I liked the bid from Milestone because it had very sort of specific deliverables and it had a calendar. And for me, that's very helpful because it indicates to me like they have a plan and they want us involved. There was also meetings with the community that was in that plan as well. So if I was to lean towards anyone, I would lean towards Milestone.
Sounds good. And then like I said, they provided. I'm gonna pull it up right now. Oh, here it is. Yeah, Milestone provided 12 references, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry. Looks like 1, 2, 3. Looks like 9. They provided 9 references. 6. Yep, 9.
Does council have any other questions or comments about this? I would honestly like to vote on this when we reconvene whatever our next meeting is, August 15th, for 2 reasons. One, this project has been sort of the mayor's very close, near and dear to the mayor's heart for many years. And I think she would like to be here to cast a vote as to which engineering firm we choose. And also she may be able to give some background on that EcoSite company that might inform our decisions as well. Would council be amenable to tabling this till our next meeting? I see yes from CM Taylor.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We've got a couple of hands up.
Yes.
Before I pass it to Mr. Monroe, Mr. Gaston, would you mind just sending a sort of one email that includes the 3 bids, the quotes, I'm sorry, the 3 bids as well as the references just in one email, so we have it in one place to review before the next meeting?
I will do that on Monday if you don't mind,
Yes,
but
sir.
sure,
Yes,
I'd be
sir.
happy to do that. Not a problem. Just, yeah, not a problem. I will do that.
Councilmember Monroe and then Councilmember Rauch, please.
Sorry, I couldn't lower my hand fast enough. That was actually my request.
Councilmember Rauch?
Thank you.
Sorry about that was my request as well. I was going to say, I think I got unmuted, but sometimes we do a bid tabulation, or at least something that kind of puts it into one document for us in the past. So if we could just have it all listed in one memo, one document, one pager. Thank you.
Will we be having discussion or voting on and selecting the company at our next meeting then? Is the proposal, which one, sorry?
I would anticipate that we will vote on which engineering firm to hire at the next meeting.
I would like to enter in then just at least my statement that I have shared with you all in email my wishes would be that that in our selection we would also consider that we have a resolution 2017-11 that establishes a sustainable purchasing policy, which includes that the mayor and the council and individuals and the town coordinate with federal agencies, state, local agencies, as well as other stakeholders regarding permits, retrofits, everything that we can do to ensure environmental construction, and that the companies that are responsible for that we're engaging with, contracting with, also have sustainability in mind. So just making that for the record.
Absolutely. And I think, that first meeting that we have with whomever we choose as our engineering firm, if you have time available, let's find a way for us all to be at the table with those people to make sure that those priorities are communicated right off the bat.
If that's a possibility, that's great. Thank you.
Long as it's no more than 2.
What did you say, Mr. Gaston?
As long as it's no more than 2.
Right, exactly. Very good. All right, so we will table that till the next meeting. Before we adjourn, Mr. Gaston, do you mind ripping through the upcoming events?
I would be happy to. Give me 1 hot second, and
Yes,
I
sir.
will pull that up. Really quickly, tomorrow, Sunday, August 6th, is the Salvadoran American Day, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. It indicates Bartlett Park, but I think because of weather or heat, it's been moved indoors into inside Town Hall. There will be food, so if anybody wants to stop by and celebrate the Salvadorian American Day, please do. The summer concert series, Sunday, August 13th. This was the one that was rescheduled because of the rain, so it's been rescheduled for Sunday, August 13th. The next one will be August 19th on a Saturday, and then the final one will be Saturday, September 9th. All concert times are from 5 to 8, and the music will start at 6. The Brentwood Police Academy, the Brentwood Police Department is hosting their annual summer camp. This is for ages from 10 to 16, Tuesday and Wednesday, August 16th, 15th, and 16th. And that will be here in Bartlett Park. If your child and or relative or whoever wants to register, please email info@brentwoodnd.gov. Lastly, the back to school supplies giveaway, which will be from 5 to 7 p.m. That will be once again held here at Town Hall / Bartlett Park. This is the mayor's annual backpack giveaway. So more importantly, if anybody wants to donate any backpacks, please do. For those who are not aware, and somebody can help correct me on this, Prince George's County is now asking for backpacks to be clear. For those who are not aware of that, so you can't just go out and buy any random backpack. Your backpack needs to be clear, is my understanding. Could somebody want to correct me on that, or am I right?
Clear for middle school and above. Elementary school can still be
Oh.
old fashioned.
And then so that helps me out. I was not worried about that. Okay, but thank you very much. Somebody had their hand up. There you are, Councilmember Rowe.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt the reading of the calendar of events, though. Are you completed?
Oh, I'm finished. Yes, that
Town
was it.
Administrator?
Yes, ma'am. That was it. We
Okay.
haven't done September's calendar yet, and it will be robust and full as it always is.
Okay, great. Then I would just like a question, for the backpack giveaway, considering that next week is Maryland tax-free week, do we know what the supplies list has traditionally been? Is that something we can start promoting, or should we wait for the mayor to come back in order to lead that, that kind of, activity?
I'm going to defer to Councilmember Monroe, who has school-age children.
Are you talking about the list from PGCPS that they put out as far as like supplies requests or recommended supplies? Is that one you're talking about?
My question is what the back to school town of Brentwood event is trying to request for supplies.
Oh.
And I don't know if I imagine that's PGCPS, but I don't know. So I'm just wondering if there's some kind of, can we get ahead of can we issue promotional materials for the backpack giveaway day and let folks know what the school supply list is that we're requesting? Because next week is tax-free Maryland week, and it would be a great time for people to go out and purchase in order to donate. So do we have a supply list?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. And thank you for clarifying. Then that list is provided by PGCPS, so we can get in front of it. I will defer to the mayor because she may have already laid that out in her planning for the event. But it's a pretty straightforward list that they give you for elementary school. You just go to the school supplies list, and they list it by like elementary and then intermediate and middle high school from there. But I agree. I think just making sure that that matches and getting it out in front of folks makes a lot of sense. And I know the PTO does that as well through the app that they send out to all the parents that mayor should be on as well.
Vice Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
What I will do is, and you'll have to forgive me, I don't have a contact at Mount Rainier Middle, but we do have contacts at Thomas Stone. I will send them an email and ask them, what exactly do you need for school supplies? Send me the list. Then what we can do is add it into the next version of the news you can use. And then that way everyone will have a list of what is needed for the future at Thomas Stone Elementary School. I cannot speak for Mount Rainier though.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Is there any other comments?
Sorry, one other question. I've noticed in the town calendar that tomorrow's El Salvadorian event was listed, or somewhere I saw that it was listed as a proclamation, but I haven't seen any promotional material. Have I missed that? Is that been sent out? Is that on Facebook? Or do people, what's the plan? Are we invited?
Yeah, so everyone is invited. The mayor is wanted to read her proclamation before we posted it. So we have a proclamation, but she wants to read it when on tomorrow. So that's why we haven't pushed it out. But the event is welcome to all residents. And so that's where we are. But she wanted to read the proclamation before we actually posted it.
So forgive me, did I miss this? I might have. Absolutely, entirely possible if I missed, or is this a private? Did you guys?
No, it's a public event
notice?
as far as I know. It's a public event as far as I know.
Vice Mayor, did you get a notice?
All I know is that we've been talking about having a special day for folks who are from El Salvador. And I always thought it was a public event. I had no indication that this was a private event. And I think to Mr. Gaston's point, there's been a proclamation. However, it hasn't been read because it was waiting for the, pomp of the day, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I think everyone's going to be there. You know what I mean? So.
What time is it again? I'm sorry, I missed
Great.
that.
5 to 7 p.m.
Oh,
5 to 7.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
At the town hall.
Correct. It was initially, and I don't know why,
5 to
but
7.
it was moved inside, and it might have to do with the food that will be served.
Is there a flyer by chance?
No, there was not a flyer created, because the mayor, like I said, did not, request one, to be honest with you. But the event is public and it is free.
Is it catered? Is it potluck? I have neighbors who I'd like to invite who are originally from El Salvador, but I don't know what I
I'm
would
sorry.
do about it.
Yeah, 3 to 6 p.m. Everyone's
5
invited.
to 7? 5 to 7 or
No,
3
I
to
was
7?
wrong. It's 3 to 6, according to our town clerk,
Okay.
and I apologize for that.
Okay, 3 to 6.
3 to
Everyone's
6.
invited.
Yeah, it's 3 to 6.
You don't need to bring food or beverage or
No,
anything.
no,
It's
just bring
it'll all
yourself.
be
and
catered. Okay. Thank you
my
very much.
understanding, yep, the room is ready to go. There was some items that the room has been set up, and we're ready to go. So please come.
Councilmember Monroe.
Sorry about that. Where is this information posted, to sort of piggyback on those questions? And maybe that'll help us just be able to direct people to one single source of truth.
So this was one of those events that kind of sort of grown from a grassroots perspective. Right
Okay.
now, the only official place that it's been listed is on the agenda. The
Gotcha.
mayor-
Okay.
yeah. And so, but everyone's invited. We just, the mayor, we didn't have a flyer made, but it is happening tomorrow from 3 to 6.
Okay.
And just real quickly, Officer Starks, who is currently on duty, has just sent me the PGPS backpack list. He sent me 2. So I will put this out for all to see on Monday when we do the news you can use. So this will have the links to the list for everyone to buy for the backpacks. Hopefully that answers your question, Councilmember Rowe. I wanted to let you know that our police officers are on duty and they are listening.
Thank you so much, Town Administrator, and to our wonderful police force.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm glad we got that squared away. And I would just want to thank the council and thank the staff for putting in all the hard work that led up to today, including the additional meetings while we're technically on recess. So thank you for that. If I may get a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Motion to adjourn at 7:49 p.m.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Brentwood.
All right. Good night.